Hoberman, and I'm Gary. This is going to be a really fun episode, and I've got a good friend, Heather Wilson, here with me today.
Hey, everybody!
Hey. So Heather and I go way back. So we go back till 2012, and I remember when Heather got announced as joining Citigroup as Chief Data Officer.
Yes.
And that was,
what were we thinking during the financial crisis, Gary?
During the financial crisis. Well, data was important, right? Data and dealing with regulators was critically important. But I'm going to give a little bit about Heather's background first. I'm going to jump right in. So, Heather, you've always been involved in, I guess you could say, making sense of data. So,
yes.
Global Head of Innovation at Kaiser Permanente. Then next was Citigroup when we met back in the day as Chief Data Officer and Global Head of Decision Science, and then you went from Citi, which we'll talk about, but in Citigroup without the financial crisis, we say was tough, and with the financial crisis was insane as we were there. You went to a very heavy other regulated industry, insurance, as I did. And you went to AIG as Enterprise Data Officer there, Chief Data Officer. Then L Brands, now different picture. This is interesting, getting from AIG. That must have been the push. And then Chief Data Science, Head of Artificial Intelligence at L Brands.
The push up, okay? Kept going up, Larry. Yeah.
And then where you are now as the Chief Executive Officer at CLARA Analytics, an amazing company that we're going to share more about what it is, and we're partnering with you and how we're going to work together. But give us your background. What did I miss, Heather? Fill in the blanks.
Look, I think I've seen every wart that a Chief Data Officer, Analytics Officer, Chief Data Scientist, right? 15 years in this space. And, those of you I know are still out there, pushing more capabilities. I've seen it all, right? Sometimes I'm like, I'm a doctor, same symptom, different industry is how I've viewed it, right? So whether it was retail, understanding supply chain data, logistics data, inventory data, or like we experienced, right, and insurance, right, core capabilities from underwriting and pricing over to this behemoth of a claims organization to Citigroup, right, trying to get that data architecture right for whether it's, CCAR or financial reporting, regulatory reporting, and getting through that. So, and then Kaiser Permanente, trying to save lives. So listen, I've seen it all, but I think one of the biggest things that I've done is really try to promote women in technology and diversity. It was pretty lonely at times when you walk into that boardroom and you didn't, see, other Heathers in there. So that's been a big part of my life too, Gary. And it's a big part of why I chose to join this female-led AI startup. There's so few of us CEOs, females in insurtech.
That's awesome. And I should have mentioned you're on the board of Equifax as well, named one of the 30 top inspiring leaders in your role in CLARA. That's incredible. So give us the CLARA pitch. So data, look, when we first met, I think I also was doing the Unqork pitch, and I'm like, I kind of feel like we are at the infancy stage. We're middle school years of technology. So everything around us is awkward, quirky, and almost pimples in some way, shape, or form, because it doesn't work the way it should. I remember the Apple Watch example, like when I was so excited to have the Apple Watch and have my, one of the airlines passes on my watch, and I could just, I'm picturing, the cool guy walking through the airport, scanning your hand and go right into and then you get there and that clamshell can't fit your hand on it. It only fits the phone. And then you look like the awkward, unusual person trying to put your hand in. But please, we'd love to hear more. What is CLARA up to?
Yeah, no, thanks, Gary. Listen, I think the insurance industry, it just has this amazing opportunity in front of it. We've seen it in the payments industry, right? When we've got new business models, buy now, pay later. And I think insurance is right for this. So, a couple of reasons why I decided to join CLARA. It's really the kind of the mission and the value behind it. At AIG, I have wonderful partners there trying to build some really great data and analytical capabilities, but it's hard. It's really hard because you're thinking about the operations, you're thinking about this, spaghetti of upstream product processors, you're thinking about the end user, whether it's the adjuster, whether, you're thinking about the underwriter, and you're like, wow, how to get AI actually productionized and getting this done. And then when I worked at L Brands, when you actually see people working in a distribution center, things go wrong. They go wrong. They go wrong in trucking. They go wrong in retail environments. They go wrong in logistics. And you're like, what's insurance doing about this to get this injured worker back to health and back to their family. And so when I joined CLARA, we're like a specialist. If you think about just going ahead with a kind of a hospital analogy, right? If you think about your primary care physician, they're primary, they're that internist, they're that generalist. They see everything about you, but they need specialists around them. And I think these carriers and these self-insureds and these brokers that start to embrace insurtechs, we're the specialists, and we're here to add to your capabilities, to your services. And so I joined CLARA because we specialize in workers' comp. We are a specialist in here. And you think about, these chief claims officers, they're just, sitting there hoping that their claims stay on this optimal path, but they don't. They don't. And so how do you make sure that they don't have, right, the CFO sitting there going, why did this large claim go off the grail that it's now hurting my earnings, right? So CLARA is a specialty in workers' comp. We've never lost a client since we started, and we're delivering anywhere from 15x to 40x multiple back in savings of making sure that a claim cycle is shortened. And how do we do that? We do that being a real-time decision assistant to that adjuster. So we're using the claims notes data, we're using the structured file claims files, we're using the medical record notes, and we're helping from the very beginning to triage, to understand, listen, this is going to be a complex claim, and we've got to use all of our information and AI to help you keep it on the optimal path. And to keep it on the optimal path is we've got to make sure the right physician is seen from the very beginning. So we provide that also. And then, oh my goodness, our models are starting to detect some litigation that may happen, like either settle or make sure that, that attorney never gets involved. It's difficult, insurance has difficult workflows, right, through the adjudication process, and that adjuster needs that assistance. And that's what we're there to do, is to help with that claim life cycle, help that adjuster. And we're the only one in the game. We're the only one doing this out there. We compete against the ghost of build, right? And so I'm like,
you know that well.
Don't build this, right? We're here to be your specialist, just like you have a specialist in your life, whether it's a urologist or a cardiologist. That's what CLARA is. So we kind of think of it, our clients call her CLARA, like Siri. So they're like, hey, CLARA, what's your signal today for the adjuster to help to keep, this injured worker into the right treatment? So listen, I think if you think of insurance as like an opportunity to be like connective tissue, not only are we trying to help the adjuster and that claims chief officer, but we're going back to the chief underwriting officer and going, hey, listen, we know your book. We know your claims. Don't you want to look at your book and understand how you're trending against the industry and benchmark yourself? But also, don't you also want to see maybe if you're bringing in a new insured, maybe you want to get a heads up of exposure planning and loss avoidance. So we're trying to connect here the tissue that I think other industries have done. And that's what we're trying to do in CLARA, and be that specialist to the carriers and to the self-insureds and to the brokers. How's that for a mouthful?
That is, what I love, Heather, is the passion around it. So it's I always say New York City, passion.
Yeah, great. This is passion right here.
That's it.
I cut my hair since Citigroup because I've had so much, work going on. Thank you for that.
It's amazing because a lot of people don't understand the claims process. A lot of people who are consumers think, oh, they're trying to delay it, or it's just not orchestrated well. And data is not being used. I remember one example. I personally saw an example where when there was a first notice of loss in a claim, and it was captured by a offshore call center in a CRM tool, a popular CRM tool. Mm-hmm. They generated a PDF which got sent to another group. It was indexed and now rekeyed in as a PDF, OCR'd into another software, all the same company.
Yeah.
The data. And so the data itself was just entered twice. And that's 2 times the ability to get it wrong, by the way. That's 2 times.
And what's neat about working with us too is we can have someone up and running in 6 weeks. I mean, and we have pre-built integrations in with the third-party integrators too. And so if a carrier can just get us every form of their claims file and claim notes, right? And once we do the data mapping, we're off and running. We can start to ingest that into our models and start to push it through an API seamless integration to the app and a web server. And it's like, it's end to end. They get that end to end. And back to the what you're talking about, that claims workflow, it is difficult. And so, yes, the human intelligence, some of these adjusters, they've been doing this for decades, and you need that, but you cannot, your eye and your intelligence cannot follow 180 claims that you've got in your portfolio as an adjuster. And we are real time. As soon as a movement is in that claims file or in that medical record, it's adjusting that, claimant's file. And we're understanding, guess what? It wasn't a good track. It's not on a good track. And here's an alert. Either they saw the wrong physician, or something's happening within that file that needs the human to intervene, and the supervisor within that flow. We just, I have a lot of compassion for the injured worker, but also for the adjuster, and for that, whether they're new or whether they've been doing this for decades, and providing that real-time decision assistant for them. That's going to be the game changer for these carriers out there, and figuring out how to plug in capabilities like yours and mine. I think, the consumer is going to push them there, but I also think the insurance is going to push them there as well to have these services, especially, we talk with the CFO many times, and they're wondering, why aren't we using CLARA? Because if you're saving, these 25 other clients of yours anywhere from, 5 million to, 16 million, I want that, because that's what hits their bottom line, that claims efficiency.
I'm going back to what you said. You compete with, I like the words you use, ghost of code. So how is that actually play out? So I'm assuming the CFO follow that through. The CFO would say, why aren't we getting this benefit? Why aren't we using it? You're going against custom coding, right? It's companies that believe they have the data and the abilities to code this, and that's their advantage. But you've already raised the bar. So how do you get through that? What's the messaging?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm a type of person that 3 no's gets me closer to a yes. So, I hear your no's and it just keeps going past me, because I've been there, right? I've lived in these large carriers. And
never split the difference. I never talk books, but never split the difference.
Yeah.
It's a really good negotiating book. And one of the stories is get to no fast, because then there's only way to get back to yes. And that's it. So once you hit no. Yeah.
And you know what? And I'm all about, listen, stick to your core, okay? But bring me in as a specialist, as an easy integrator here. And the way that we talk about it is, I always say, listen, I've been a data scientist. You have smart people. I know that. But what I'd like to do is have you, really look at making this your model, okay? And we can add to it, and we can continue, because you're going to continue to add attributes, right? I mean, we're like Michelangelo, we're lifelong learners, right? We're lifelong learners. We have to be, or we become extinct. So one of the things is, their eyeballs are like, wow, you have all of this industry data. Wow, you have productionized AI. Wow, you have this slick interface too. Yeah, and it's real time. I think, a lot of them are still trying to build it internally, and it's hard because it's still in shelfware. And I get that. I know it's a dream, and I've been there. But I also know how much time you waste doing that. And I hit that point when I went to L Brands, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring in people, and I'm just going to add them into my architecture and transition the models and teach my team. And I just gave that up. I gave that up about 4 years ago. And I just learned that partnering with some really great folks out there was the way for me to leapfrog. And you got to just let go of it at some point. And so, we're in different cycles and conversations, but you have to also get to that point that, you know what? Call it your model. I don't know. Call it the Heather model. It doesn't have to be CLARA. We don't care, right? We don't care. But we want to help you, and we want to help you see that yourself versus others pushing you there. So that's how we get to it, Gary. We understand it. I mean, I've been there.
You don't threaten the companies, you help them. That's what we're the same we say. It's like, we're not here to disrupt. We're here to actually improve and help you and find you. It's interesting. So Heather, you and I had a conversation. I literally, right after we got back together, I reconnected. I had a friend who gave me an analogy about a smart city and said the use of data in the smart city was fascinating. What they said was, we've got, the best sources of claims data of accidents in cars is insurance companies.
Yeah.
And there's no question, they have every detail of the accident because they're paying it, and it's filed, and it's got the pictures, and knows where. But there's a country outside the United States where the insurance companies have decided, their goal is to pay the claims and make it efficient and fast. And we love helping them. That's where we play as well in auto insurance. But in their example, they immediately look for patterns in data, and then they go back to the cities and they actually make changes to the traffic lights. And they're like, that intersection needs a traffic light, that intersection needs a different traffic light, we need a traffic, and they actually work with the city planners to prevent the accidents, which reduces claims. We don't do that here in the US, from what I know.
And think about it, Gary, think about this. Insurance, right? The from longevity, right? Insurance has been around forever, right? Back in starting in England. They have the richest set of data. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do within workers' comp is we're trying to give the data back to our clients, right? And we're going into the self-insured segment space as well, as you know, with you all. And we want to say, listen, great, we see the injuries that happen, but let us give this back to you and help you prevent and predict from an employee safety environment. Let us help you understand whether it's the equipment, whether it's certain flooring, right? Whether it's certain machinery, whether it's certain, ways that the worker continues to do their manual tasks. Let us play this back to you to help you with prevention. So I've always been a big believer. Yes, insurance is there when bad things happen. Absolutely. Okay. But why don't we finish the other part of this, the other part of the formula? Okay. And help these things not happen again. And that's what we're trying to do is serve back all of this because we have one of the largest databases of workers' comp in the United States. So yes, we're trying to serve it back to the underwriting officers for exposure, for booking, for reserving. But we want to give it back to the employers to help them with the patterns and to help them with this prediction. And that's what we honestly want to do through No Code AI with you all and go to self-insured because you have a risk platform and we have the AI models to do this.
That's amazing. And I guess the example there would be the traffic lights in your case would be doctors in some cases, which is you're able to know which doctors are good at what they do, which ones aren't, or based on a condition, which ones are the best to go to. So you could actually almost like a GPS direct the employer, to the right spot for their employee where they need to get the best.
So we do that now. We direct the injured worker to the right physician. So we have one of the largest contributed databases of physicians. So not all physicians work on workers' comp claims and specialize in that. Right. So you have a lot of orthopedic surgeons and so forth because of those type of injuries or chiropractors and so forth. So, yeah, we can tell them, listen, 2 miles away, this is the point of entry. You need to go see, this particular physician. But then we also are starting to see at employers, right? We're starting to see all of the injuries that are happening across all of their different environments. So think about these employers that have multiple distribution centers, that have all these truckers out there, right? We can honestly help them understand how safe their environments are for their workers. And that's the next piece of it that we want to help them with prediction and prevention.
Awesome. That's amazing. And we are there to extend your platform and make it easier for them to use it. So we're going to be your no code workflow and rules engine and actually UI from this point of view, which is exciting as we go to market together, which is exciting. And Heather, I got to say, so first off, from what I understand, CEOs coming out of corporate world like us are rare, far between. So that's number one is congrats. But number two, as you said, female CEOs and leaders, what's your advice? Is there any advice you would give anyone that's in this path and what you'd give them from both your corporate experience and all those, as we talk about the scars of the knives in the back and the front and all over, please, it'd be great to hear.
No, thank you. I was always an entrepreneur inside these organizations. It wasn't like when I became the chief data officer at these large, Fortune 50, like, oh, Heather, I'm just so glad you're here and just bring your innovation, ideas. I had to sell and to the respective CEOs and business line presidents and do that through evidence-based, and show them the power and the art of the possible with analytics and what we can do with all these beautiful, amazing data sets that they had collected. And so for me to go into this entrepreneur CEO role, it was really a natural fit. But, one of the things that I've always embraced is people used to always ask me, well, why aren't you in this women's organization outside of AIG or Citigroup or Kaiser L Brands? I always felt this really big, true conviction to help these young women inside, and any, woman inside of an organization where I was working, to help them through starting the Women in Technology organizations. And I'll never forget when I always pitched to the CEO, if I could start that, one CEO was just like almost in tears because his mother had almost been ostracized because she tried to pitch an idea to management. And because she was, a certain gender, it just didn't go over well. And it's like, who cares? Right? Who cares? And so this world that we live in, I'm still in beating and beating on the table about helping, women of all different positions that's, listen, you have so much capability, and having to push them, right? I mean, Gary, there's still not a lot of us female CEOs and CIOs and the C-suites and in InsurTech, right? I'm an anomaly, but I want to encourage and continue to encourage others. I want more Heathers out there. I really do, right? You don't have to be long hair blonde, but I want more Heathers.
That's awesome. This is amazing, Heather. It's so much fun having you on and reconnecting after those years in City, and it's great to see where you are, where you're going to be, and where we're going to go together with this. This is amazing. So I really appreciate you joining me here and for this journey that we have next going on with Unqork and CLARA. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait. And listen, Gary, I want to thank you too for being a big proponent and a big believer in diversity and inclusion. I know you also are out there in this world that we live in. Obviously, I'm very proud having, sit on the board of Equifax, being a part of a CEO that embraced bringing more women on a board. And, he didn't need NASDAQ to push him to do that. So some CEOs, were already there without having, investment community pushing them to do the right thing. So I want to applaud you because you did it before someone ever told you that we need to do it.
Yeah, Heather, with all the investments as you've been coming out of corporate world, those companies that we've been part of invest in us. There's no question, invest in leaders. And it's everyone that's in these programs should love that these in these programs. And you're going to Harvard for a week, Harvard Business School. You're going to all these MIT. The one thing I learned out of all those programs that I took away was you don't hire people like you. Because if the interview goes well, it might be because they look, think, and talk like you. So you don't want a mirror. There's enough of us.
No,
right?
exactly.
So you want diversity of thought. And we actually, when we opened payroll November 2017, the month we opened payroll, we had our first female engineer, and she was our first engineer. And we set the stage, and she's incredible. And Laura is still with us here today as we go through this journey, and she's taken on so much. It's amazing to see. So you have to. It's a conscious directive, and it's you want diversity of thought is really what it's about to me. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, that's amazing, Heather. It's great. Again, thank you again for joining us
thank
here.
Thank you.
And
Unqork, go CLARA.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.